Hey guys, Darren Guy, Coach of Wise Pods, and welcome back to another episode of Trade Mode. 2 more weeks to go, and we have a bit of carnage this round. So hopefully that's not going to impact you too much when it comes to your league finals. And for those that are, fighting for hats and cars, hopefully it's not going to throw you off too much. Because if you don't have the likes of a Brody Grundy or a Merritt, that does mean that you have more flexibility with your trades and you probably can be a bit more unique at this time of year. So that's what a lot of the focus is going to be around in today's video. Obviously, moving off the two major guys that I just spoke about, Brody Grundy and Merritt. I think a lot of people have them, particularly more Brody Grundy than Merritt, because a lot of people unfortunately did jump off him last week with the entire tag concerned with Mullen, but that obviously backfired. I think that's 2 weeks in a row now that most of the trades have backfired. We had Caleb Daniel the weekend before. He went 115. So this time of the year is just very, very tricky to get the right end of the trades because, again, the players that we are playing with are all capable of putting up very big scores. We wouldn't have them in our teams unless they were able to. So yeah, it's always a tricky time of year. But let's see what we can do in today's video. So I'll just quickly touch on the most traded out players and my top 5 this week. So obviously you've got the two injured boys at the top there, Brody Grundy and Mira. I've just stuck them both at number one because if you have both of them, they both need to go. Yeah, unfortunately, I have two forced trades, and you are luckily enough that they both have plenty of money in your head. Like, Brody Grundy is the most expensive player, $1.22 million. So even going to the likes of a Royal Marshall or a Max Gorn, you're saving 140K there alone. So you can easily put that money on top of Zach Merritt's head if you had no money in the bank, and then you can still get a very, very nice player. So luckily, yeah, you got plenty of money to play with, so that is a very fortunate situation rather than having to really search for this really scrappy option. You should have plenty of money. If you only have one of them, then it's pretty straightforward. I think most case scenario, if you have a Brody Grundy, you're actually saving a lot of money, and that opens up a lot of flexibility with, do you trade out a McCarthy, and that brings in a 23rd option for you that can be on the bench and loop and whatnot. Because there are obviously what we've experienced in the last couple of weeks. There's going to be people that are being tagged. There's going to be some lower scores from big premiums. So if we can get them off field and get some better scores, that's going to give us more of a leg up on the competition and continue to move up the rankings and have a strong finish to the year. So Brody Grundy needs to go, and Zach Merritt obviously are the ones that both are going. If I didn't elaborate too much on those two, both of them are missing at least 1 week. Brody Grundy's got a concussion. Zach Merritt has a hand injury. I think he's broken his hand. Had surgery, so he will miss this week, but he could mix next week. Same with Brody Grundy. Obviously, concussion. They go through their protocols, but who knows how he recovers from that. So they both could be out for the remaining of the AFL fantasy season. So both of them just are must trades out, in my opinion. I would not be holding any of them. So that's just that. Number 2, I did have Tom McCarthy for the situation that I just explained, that, most people have Brody Grundy. You're going down from him, so that means you have an extra 140K to play around with to put on top of a McCarthy's head. That can get you to a very, very nice play. 850K if you have a little bit more money in the bank as well. 900K, you can get some very, very nice players. So just being able to upgrade him, get a much better scorer as a 23rd premium, have that flexibility with taggers and, bad matchups, stuff like that. Can be really, really useful to your fantasy side for the finish of the year. So that's where I lean when I'm thinking about, a lot of situations this week. So I think Tom McCarthy can go. Yes, his role has improved drastically. He's playing a lot more midfield now, and we saw that his score definitely reflected that. A bit more of a safer floor, like 88 from a very tough matchup from the Crows. 21 kicks, 8 touches, and really didn't get too many marks or tackles just because they are a tough matchup. But it was nice to see. So he doesn't absolutely need to go, but I still feel like getting him up to a much better premium is going to serve you better long term, because the fact that Tom McCarthy doesn't play a lot of early games. So the next 2 rounds he plays very, very late in both of those. So he's going to be the player that you're relying on at the end of the day to put up this, plus 80 score, because you're more than likely if you loop the player that has performed poorly, otherwise you would have taken it. So I think it's more useful for him to be traded up to a player that plays early in the round that can put up that ceiling score for you and be fielded over one of those tagged premiums. So that's just my way I play, but that's obviously not the way everyone plays. With you could just go the straight upgrade and get the best 22 possible, right? So depends how you want to play. Number 3 is Christian Petrarca. He has just been absolutely putrid, if I can say my words. 70, 84, 78, and 71 is just really, really stinky over the last 4. And he's still got the Hawks and Collingwood to finish off the season, which are quite tough matchups. So I think there's just better options in the forward line now that you can jump off of Christian Petrarca. He doesn't really look like himself at the moment, so I think he's the one you can easily get a simple 20, 30 point upgrade from him if he's going to continue this 70 average. Has tough matchups, so I think you can reliably say he's the one that you want to jump off out there. So he is number 3. Number 4, I've gone with Zach Butters. Obviously, with all the tag talk, he has the likes of Colton, which they've been using Cooper Lord as the tagger recently, and he's been able to hold Caleb Sarong and Noah Anderson to like 19 touches each, which equaled about 65 points for both of those guys. So I am definitely expecting a sub 70 score from Butters this week. Could be even worse because obviously we saw him only 2 weekends ago get held to a 34. So he has shown himself to be very, very taggable. So I think the likes of Cooper Lord's going to definitely be licking his lips at this matchup to hold him to those smaller tallies. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go poorly. So if you can trade off of him and still get up to a very good player, by all means, if you can do that, do it. Otherwise, there's no harm in the likes of looping him. Have a look. He does play Saturday, so you can have a look at him and then see, okay, did he score well? Yes, no, okay, take it, or try and loop someone else on if you are in that position. So, yeah, but he does play the Suns next weekend, so I do think that's quite a good matchup. So, if you do hold him this week, it could be a bit of a unique leading into next week, which obviously he could put up a bit of a ceiling score in your grand final if you were to make it. So, it's just playing that bit of strategy if you want to have a bit of a leg up or a bit of a unique going into the last round. Obviously, a lot of people will probably be trading in the likes of a Jeremy Cameron or something like that type that can go absolutely massive in the final round against easy opponents, rather than like the Zach Butters. Probably not the most thrilling sort of player to trade in your final round. So that's why I think he's just worthwhile down at there number 4, because he's going to be tagged for 50% of his next 2 games. So yeah, I think he's one that can go. And number 5, I've thrown in the likes of Andy Brayshaw. He has just been so terrible for the last probably couple months now. Like since the bye, he's put up 2 130s, but everything besides that has been really meh. One score over 100 and everything sub sort of 99, 85, 90, 82, 90, 76 is just getting worse. And the matchups aren't going to get any easier as well. Like he's got Brisbane Lions, tough matchup, and obviously the Dogs as well. The thing that has kept him in my side for the period of time is just because Fremantle are obviously playing for finals, right? They've just got into the top 4 right now, but there's still a chance of dropping out if they drop their next 2 games. They do have a tough run. If they do manage to drop both of these games, they could see themselves miss finals. So they need to play with everything they've got. So Andy Brayshaw, being one of the top players in their team, needs to stand up. So that's why I've held him, but he just hasn't been getting it done. So if you're in the luxurious position where you don't have too many forced trades, maybe you have one and you can flick on Andy Brayshaw as the other, you can easily get him up to a very, very solid player. He's got plenty of money in his head. You can get up to the likes of a Dunkley if you want to go up to the very, very top, or find someone that's a bit more unique that can have a bit of a ceiling score for you. I definitely don't mind jumping off Andy Brayshaw as a bit of a more of a unique option, because he is quite highly owned in the top 1,000. I think it's 96% or something like that, something ridiculous. So that could be a way for you to get very unique and separate yourself from the pack from someone that has been very, very disappointing. So Yeah, interesting decision. It's a hard one to make, like, because Brayshaw again could absolutely turn it on this weekend and go massive. But again, the data isn't there to say that his form isn't quite there at the moment. So it would take some sort of really momentum shift to really get those big scores. So I think he can go. A few others that aren't in my top five, the likes of Callum Mills. I think it's one you could easily look at and say you're easily getting an upgrade, right? If you're going from a Callum Mills to a Lockie Whitfield or something in that nature, you could easily say that's an upgrade, right? But I still think Callum Mills is going to be good enough for the final 2 rounds that he's going to be okay. Yes, he puts up these 70 scores every so often in tough matchups, but he does not have a tough matchup to finish off the year. He's got the Cats and then he's got the Eagles. Both could go extremely well. Again, Sydney aren't playing for anything, so that's maybe the only concern. Do they put him on ice? Do they even just start chip the ball around a little bit? There's so many different factors that you could see teams that aren't playing for anything do at the moment, because again, they're not playing for anything. Do they just start to put the players on ice and get ready for the next season, just to get these players that have had injuries throughout the season, being Callum Mills with that shoulder injury and foot injury, I believe. So yeah, I could see that happen as well. So he could be one that goes as well. But in my opinion, and what I'm hoping for my team specifically, I'm hoping he can continue his decent scoring ability at that 90 to 100 scoring. So I don't mind him there, but he can definitely go. Letty, obviously, he can go as well if you're looking as just a bit of an upgrade to get some money off their head. Caleb Daniel, I am against this trade out this week specifically. He's got Richmond, one of the easiest matchups. I think they're the number one matchup for designated kick-up players, which we know Caleb Daniel is. So I'm expecting a pretty decent score from him. Maybe not a ton, but an 80-ish, which is good enough in the forward line this week. I don't think you're trading out of a Caleb Daniel who's in your forward line to someone else that is not going to put up a very similar score, right? We don't have those big ceiling players. Unless you want to take on a big punt and go, the likes of a Sam Darcy, if you don't have him in your team. We know he has the likes of the West Coast Eagles, so he could put up a bit of a ceiling there. But then it comes the next week and he's got Fremantle. So it's going to be one up, one down, which is going to be very similar to the likes of a Caleb Daniel. And it's going to be a much for muchness sort of trade. So I think you can ride out Caleb Daniel, see him throughout to the end of the year, and he'll be fine. So that's just how I sort of feel about the forwards at the moment. There's just nothing there for me. Curtin can go. Obviously, after a poor performance, he's now got Collingwood, which is a tough one, so I don't mind him going. May, Teagle, all these sort of guys that are just really using up to get the remaining money off your bench. I absolutely love. You don't want any money left over on your bench for the final 2 rounds. Just try and maximize it on field to try and get the most amount of points possible. Lockie Ash is an interesting one that needs to be discussed, because obviously he put up that putrid 29 on the weekend. Looks like he's carrying an injury with no confirmation of that at all, but just the way he spent like 19 minutes on the bench in that final term is scary enough to say, okay, let's just jump off of this, get to someone that is going to be a better performer. If you don't have the likes of a Sheasel, that's an obvious one that you could easily get a big upgrade this weekend, because we expect Sheasel's going to be pretty good. He will feature in the captains tomorrow because he does play Richmond, right? He loves playing against Richmond. He averaged quite well across his career against them. Obviously a great matchup. So that's an easy one. If you don't have the likes of a Sheasel, then I'd be making that jump, right? Because there's no guarantee that Lockie Ash will return back to his mid-season form where he didn't drop below a ton for so long. But there's no guarantee that he's going to be bad again either. So it's a tough one, but I think you can say with certainty that he probably isn't going to hurt you. He hasn't really shown that massive ceiling that he's going to put up a 130, 140, and it's going to absolutely destroy your season. We've seen that once or twice since round one, obviously round 0. Besides that, expecting just like a mess score, but he does have a decent run. The Suns and St Kilda are 2 decent matchups for designated kick-out players, so he should be fine. It's a tough one for me to be an outside looking in, but yeah, again, if you're missing any of those top line premiums in the defensive line, then I'd be making the leap. If not, and you don't see those players doing anything amazing, then I'd probably just ride out Lockie Ash and back him in to return to his breakout season performance. So yeah, there's that one. I think that's probably about it. Getting to pretty unique areas and a lot of players that should be gone already. Yeah, Nick Dacos, I guess, is someone that I've heard other podcasters speak about a little bit, because there is that sort of flag that he is carrying a bit of an injury. We saw on the weekend he started with on the bench getting some hip work, and obviously looked pretty sluggish and just really didn't get the scores that we're looking for in a non-tagged position. Obviously, time on ground's quite low as well, and he does finish off with a couple tougher matchups against Adelaide this weekend. It's going to be tough. Melbourne should be okay, just depending if he does cop attention or not is the only other factor to consider there. But because we did see that earlier in the season with an 83, so if you wanted to get super unique and you've got nothing major to play around with, then I don't absolutely hate it. Again, he is super highly owned, 53%, would be 100% in the top 1,000 quite comfortably. So you could easily jump off him and be very unique, and yeah, hopefully he goes badly, then you're getting a massive leg up from the competition, right? So I don't absolutely hate it. I wouldn't rule it out if I was in that position and I did have the flexibility with my team, but unfortunately I don't. Yeah, it obviously could backfire quite easily because he is such a good player. We have seen a huge ceiling from him, so he does have that capacity to go massive. So yeah, it is one that definitely could backfire. So just be aware of that. But yeah, I wouldn't rule it out at this stage. Cam Strong can go as well, just to touch on that one. But now let's touch on the traded in players that I think need to be discussed. We'll start with the Rucks this time of year, this week, because again, a lot of us are trading Brodie Grundy out, so I think a lot of discussion needs to go into who's the best option that we need to look at this week. So for me, and the way I have ranked them, I have simply gone with Rowan Marshall as number one. And if you know me and you've been a long-term viewer, I really focus on matchups and fixtures. And I can say by far, Rowan Marshall has the best fixture of the lot to finish off the season. Obviously, it's only 2 matches, so it's not that hard to decipher between the two. You can look it up yourself. But he finishes off with Essendon and the Giants. I think that's the 3rd and the 6th easiest matchup to finish off the year. He's had really good scoring history against both teams, so I'm expecting him to go bang the finish off the year and could potentially finish off with 2 130s here. So he is by far a really good option. He's a good captain option. He's got a decent price as well. I think the concerns of Max Heath are going to disappear with teams tomorrow. He obviously got subbed out tactically fairly early, and that's St Kilda game because he only had 2 touches and I think 1 tackle, so he was just nowhere near it. So I think he will be dropped, and it didn't really affect him anyway. We saw in the last 2 weeks that it just didn't matter. He scored 142 and 135, and again, going to be a good captain option. So I think he by far is going to be the best option. But will be extremely popular, right? He's 30% owned. I think he'll be 100% in the top 100 because it is going to be by far be the safest option of the two. But then I've got the likes of Tim English at number 2. He's got West Coast this week. West Coast are a decent matchup for Ruckman. He has not played. Tim English has not played at West Coast this year. He only played them last year, and he put up a solid, I think 106 or something like that. It wasn't anything amazing, and I will say that about West Coast is that they have been a bit of a tougher matchup for Ruckman this year, right? When there's no Matt Flynn and it's just Bailey Williams. Bailey Williams is a little bit more of a restrictive ruckman. He does get up and get the tap work out, and he doesn't allow the ruckman to roam and just get those +6s around the ground as much. So I think that could really work against Tim English, and I don't think you're going to see that massive 130 that we've seen in the past from him. The biggest score we saw against Bailey Williams has been like a 110, and that was from like a cherry, or a 113, I think it was, from Max Scorn only 2 weekends ago. But that's just what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting a 130, like I said. I think that's where I think I'm going to get a bit of a leg up from a Rowan Marshall, who's got that ceiling to go 130 both weeks. Tim English does finish off with Fremantle as well, which Again, is a bit of a neutral matchup when it comes to Ruckman because it is against the likes of Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson. I do think Luke Jackson probably matches up a bit better with Tim English, and obviously will go around with him around the ground, whereas a Sean Darcy probably gets the job done in terms of hitouts with muscling him out of the contest. So that will be a bit of a tricky one, and that's just one of the reasons why I think Rowan Marshall will be a better pick of the two. Number 3, I do have Max Gawn if you do not have him yet. He does have a tougher matchup with Darcy Cameron to finish off the year. So again, that's just really factoring into really looking at the fixture, looking at the statistics, and Darcy Cameron is a bit of a tougher matchup. But we know how good Max Gawn is, and he's not been amazing. I'll say that. Since he's become on this good run, he's gone 123, 113, and 121 in what has been good matchups. So really hasn't shown that massive ceiling that we've been accustomed to with 140s, 150s, 130s would be nice, but yeah, just hasn't been getting it done at the moment. And that could be due to the Melbourne just not being super switched on at the moment. They are not performing at their greatest at this point in time, so that does limit him in some aspects. So that's why one of the reasons, many reasons why I think Max Gawn is number 3 of the bunch. And I threw in Tristan Cherry there if you wanted to get absolutely super unique, right? Obviously, no one's owned him for the best part of 3-4 weeks since his suspension. Some people would have brought him in last week, and it probably didn't pay off for you with an 83. But he comes up against the likes of Richmond this weekend. He loves playing Richmond. He's gone 150 and 155 in his last 2 games against Dan Curvis. They just go head to head and just have a billion ruck contest, and I think that's going to happen again. Obviously, it's going to be a tight contest between the two, and it's actually a game that's going to matter in the grand scheme of things because it really deciphers who's going to get pick 2 or pick 3, right? Because they're only 2 points apart in the ladder. So if Melbourne win, North Melbourne win, they're going to jump Richmond in the ladder, and that means they're going to get pick 3 and not pick 2. So that's really going to play into the factor of okay, do they play for picks or do they play for pride, right? Because, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So I think if you want to go super unique, he by far could definitely put up a huge ceiling score that we've seen from him. He is a very, very good ruckman and a very good fantasy scorer, but he hasn't been getting it done for a period of time now. He's only put up 1 ton since the bye in round 12, and even before that, he's only really had that big patch of 5 games between round 6 and round 10 where he went massive. Besides that, it's all been pretty meh, to be honest. Looking back at the year, he was a very, very bad pick to start the year, and I wouldn't be surprised if the person that wins it probably didn't start with Tristan Cherry. I think that would have been wouldn't be a surprise to anyone because he just has been pretty poor. He lost a huge amount of money, so yeah, I wouldn't advise anyone going here, but he by far could definitely put up a massive score for you this weekend. But then does finish off with Rob O'Brien. Is that his name? I think it is. Which is one if not the hardest matchup for Ruckman. So that's again one of the reasons why I've put him down at 4th, because looking at the fixture, yes, he has an extremely good matchup this weekend, but again, has a extremely hard matchup next week. So you may get one good score and one bad score, whereas, again, I think you're going to get Rowan Marshall, who can put up, an extra 100 points for you in 2 weekends' time. So if you have the luxury, I'd be going there, but again, that is 170-odd K more for Rowan Marshall this time of year. So that's where I sort of sit with Rucks. The discussion around Luke Jackson sitting in your R2 is just mind-boggling to me. I just don't see how you can justify that that's going to be a good thing to do, because at the end of the day, Luke Jackson's maybe scoring 90s, 100 at most, especially in a tougher matchup against the likes of Brisbane Lions. That's not going to be amazing when you can have the likes of a Rowan Marshall, who is going to have that ceiling score of a 130. That's going to put up 30, 40 points on top of you in that one position alone. I just think the Rucks are one of the best fantasy scorers for us in fantasy. So you just need the best you can in that line. So I just wouldn't even play around with that. Even if it's only for 1 week, it's just get the best you can this weekend and just go with it. So I wouldn't be entertaining anyone that's trying to look at putting Jackson in our R2. Maybe, throughout the season, I've been a bit loose with that. But definitely as we're coming to the pointy end of the season and all that matters is points, points, points. I couldn't go there this week. So that's all the rucks that we need to talk about there. Hopefully that's made it a bit clearer of what my opinions are in terms of the best options. We'll touch on the forwards, but I really don't think this is where a lot of people are shopping this week. Looking at a lot of the forward options, they're all just very stinky. They've got tougher matchups, but there are a few standouts. So my number one by far is Matthew Kennedy. He has a West Coast, so if you don't have him, I think he's definitely someone that you want because he does have that consistency of being quite a good 100 player. So he's gone 3 tons of his last 4, obviously after those poor, that poor 30 back in round 18. Decent run of fixtures as well. Obviously, the Bulldogs are fighting for finals as well. They are a game behind at the moment, so they cannot physically drop a game if they want to play finals. So they are going to be playing their hearts out each and every week. So I think they're going to come out and kill the Eagles this weekend, and they are probably going to get the job done against the Dockers as well in round 24. That is at Marvel as well, so 2 very good stadiums to play against where he is averaging a fair amount as well. So he should get the job done there for you, and he is at a very good price as well, 881k. It's not too much of a stretch to get from a Petrarca. I think it's only 50k, and even if you're jumping off someone else, it's not far to go from. So if you don't have him, I think you will want him. So by far he's my number 1 pick. In the same limelight, I've got Sam Darcy. He's just down here. Again, West Coast Eagles, very easy matchup for key forwards. So he probably does kick 4 or 5, if not even a few more. He's just really trying to contest with the likes of Aaron Norton, who is in some ripping form at the moment. So he may take a few of those points off him, just reducing his ceiling a little bit. But when we have seen Sam Darcy come up against easy matchups, he's put up 117, 114, 115. North was a little bit disappointing with an 88, still kicked 4 goals in there. So yeah, he's just kicking goals. So I think he's going to be a pretty safe 80, 90 this week, and he's going to be of the upper echelon of the forwards this weekend. So I could see him being a very good option this week. Number 3, I have gone with Jack Macrae. Yes, there's a lot of concerns with Jack Macrae in terms of his time on ground, his role. There's even been some speculation of being sub as well. But I just think good matchup. Doesn't matter. He's getting the job done. 100 on the weekend. Good points per minute as well. I think he's going to get the job done for you this weekend. So I'd be backing him in. He's a very, very good fantasy player, so that's just how to think about it. And again, has the easiest matchup for midfielders at the moment, so should be very, very good there. Number 4 is a hard one to recommend because it is Isaac Rankin, and especially if you heard this at halftime in the Crows game last week, and you'd be trying to shoot me because he was on 14 or 16 points at halftime, but. He's got Collingwood this week and then North Melbourne to finish off next week. And with Crows obviously coming into finals and they're going to want to get their players in ripping form, play their best players in their best positions, I think we saw Isaac Rankin play his best position in the midfield on the weekend. He obviously changed the format of that game where they were trailing behind in the first half, threw Isaac Rankin in the midfield in the second half, and that's when they really got some speed on the ball and they were able to break free and start to win the game. So I think Isaac Rankin's best position is in the midfield where he's able to use his speed and ability to really get the ball moving. So I think they're going to use him a little bit more throughout there to finish off the season in terms of fantasy. So I think he can definitely put up some decent scores there. It's going to be a hard one to trade in, but he is super cheap. It probably falls into that perfect category of a 7th forward if you have the luxury there. He's not too much of a stretch to go from a McCarthy up to him. It's 50k. It's literally nothing. So he's easy falls into that category, and hopefully you get a ceiling score from him next week against North. Again, super easy matchup for both midfielders and key forwards. Whatever position he plays, hopefully gets the job done for you as a bit of a 2-week play. So I don't mind him there. Number 5 is an interesting one that I know a few coaches are trading in 400 this week. It's Cooper Lord. Like, he's getting the job done at the moment with being this tag. He's gone 87 and 112 in the last 2, playing as that tagger role. So he's getting plenty of tackles, 8 tackles and 12 tackles in the last 2. Plus, he's getting the ball out, 22 touches and then 24 touches. And just getting the job done. So I don't absolutely mind it. Again, super cheap, 614k. Not the greatest run. He obviously will tag Butters this weekend, and then potentially will tag the likes of Zach Merritt the week after. That's maybe the only speculation. We obviously saw what Zach Merritt did to Mullen on the weekend, kept him to very, very small numbers. So maybe that's not the best opposition to go up against, but I think he'll be fine this weekend. But when he's putting up, solid 80s as a tagger, and he has the free will to get his own ball as well, that just, gives you confidence that a guy at 614k can get the job done. So I don't mind it. Again, could be a perfect R7 play, or as a 23rd, 24th premium. I don't absolutely mind it. So I just wanted to throw him in there. But a few more that I should touch on. I wouldn't be trading in Jeremy Cameron this weekend. Just with against Sydney, I'm expecting a pretty putrid score. It could be a 30, could be 40. I do still think the likes of Geelong will try and feed him as much as they can with getting those goals, because again, he's still in the hunt. Yes, it's a bit less hyped up this weekend after a bit of a poor performance with 4 goals against Essendon. It does mean he's a bit of a stretch away, but he's still got plenty of games to go if you do count finals. I know there's a bit of speculation if you should count finals, but at the end of the day, it counts towards the tally, so what the hell? Why does it matter? But yeah, Sydney, going to be a bad score, so I just wouldn't trade him in this week. You're probably just better off waiting for next weekend, where he's going to have that bit of a pop score, hopefully, and be a bit of a captain option. So not this week for me. Luke Jackson, if you're just missing that sort of stable guy in your forward line, your forward line's probably full. Got this poorer performer like a Petrarca, and you're simply going up to Luke Jackson. I don't absolutely hate it, right? But I'm not expecting anything amazing from Luke Jackson. I'm just, again, expecting to be a pretty safe 90 to 110 sort of guy each and every week. You look since he's by, let's make that as a good example. He has gone below 90 3 times, which has been 89, 87, and 83, which you'd take every day of the week in the forward line. Everything besides that has been between 90 and 110, besides that big pop score of 144 when he was the solo ruck against a ruckless Essendon. So it's a bit of a one you probably wouldn't consider too much, because very different role. So I think he's a valid option, but not expecting anything amazing again. So there's that one. Brian Myers is unfortunate to miss out in my top 5. He's still a very good option. Again, Richmond to finish off the year will be good. But again, Sydney, tough. One of the toughest opponents to go against in most recent times. So I'm not expecting anything amazing from him. And we've got to consider, where is the tag going from Essendon? So from Sydney Swans. They've obviously got James Jordan and the likes of Campbell, who have traditionally done tags. Now, you could argue that one will go to the likes of a Bailey Smith or a Max Holmes, or if not both. Or one could go to the likes of Brian Myers and play a bit of a get a bit of a defensive work on him, just to stop his ball movement, because he is so vital to the way they play, and he is such a damaging player. So I wouldn't absolutely be amazed if someone goes to him. Now, I'm not saying it's enough to jump off of him in terms of a trade, but is something that if you do have the luxury and he's your worst player in your forward line, you could loop him and have a look. That's where I'd potentially go, but unfortunately, I don't think I'll be doing that this week, so I'll just be sticking him on field. But yeah, still a decent option, but just be aware that he could cop attention, because he is vital to the way they play. I'll probably finish off there. Luke Parker is okay as well. Good matchup. Obviously hit and miss quite frequently, so it is a bit of a risky one, but unique. Toby Green, Put up a decent score on the weekend. Again, just one of those pop scores that he's had when he does get a lot of the ball. 6 goals, 3 with 10 marks isn't going to be something he sees every day, especially in a tougher matchup against the Gold Coast this weekend, which obviously is for finals. So I think he'll get shut down pretty quickly. So this is one I'm not a big fan of. Tim Kelly could be a decent sort of F7 option. Obviously, I looked at it a couple weekends ago, but yeah, he's obviously going quite well in the last two, 93 and 90 now. So does know how to hit these decent scores as a forward. So don't absolutely mind it. But I'll finish that off with the forwards now. I'll jump off those. Let's go to the midfielders. This is probably where a lot of people are looking, obviously, trading out Zach Merritt. That's Ruckman. A lot of people will be looking for a replacement in this line. So if you're looking in the midfield, my number one option this week is the likes of Marcus Bontempelli. He has got West Coast, again, really just targeting these ultra matchups, and Marcus Bontempelli by far has a really, really good one. This week is a bit more tricky, though. I should have said that off top. Obviously, North Melbourne are playing Richmond, and Richmond are playing North Melbourne. So really two good matchups are wiped off the board pretty quickly because a lot of people already have these sort of players. So I think Marcus Bontempelli as a midfielder only is a really, really good option. I don't think I need to elaborate on too much more about that. He's just in some ripping form. If you go back through his history, his last sort of 7 or 8 games, he's only dropped below the ton twice, being a 97 and a 72, and he's regularly hit 120 pluses and even hit 140s, 160s. So he's going to hopefully put up a bit of a ceiling score for us as he again tries to lead his team to finals. So yeah, expecting a big score from him. He does have a good history against the Eagles as well, so he should be quite good there. One I didn't put on here was Jordan Dawson. If you don't have Jordan Dawson, I'd still highly encourage you to get him. He has Collingwood, which on paper is a tough matchup, but Jordan Dawson does not care. He loves actually playing the Pies. He's got a good track history against them. Went 138 against them earlier in the year, and he's also put up a 172 against them only last year or the year prior to that. So yeah, he loves playing against them. So if you don't have him, I'd still highly encourage you to get onto him now because again, really good finish off the year with North Melbourne as well. So yeah, highly encourage you there. Probably should make a top 5, but he is so highly owned at this stage. Probably wasn't worth mentioning. Josh Dunkley does slot in at number 2, and that probably goes against my thought process of decent runs. Now, Josh Dunkley is sort of the unique option when it comes to that thinking, is that he doesn't really thrive in the easy matchups. Looking at his last 5 weeks, how many tough matchups has he had? He's got Sydney, one of the toughest matchup, put up 132. Collingwood, again, on paper, tough matchup, 113. The Gold Coast, I would say that's an easier matchup. They have been an easier matchup for the season. Western Bulldogs have been more on the harder end of the scale most of the year, but have dropped off a little bit towards the end of the season, so 133. And Colton have been a bit of an easier one. So he does not really care if it's a tough match. He probably actually prefers it to be a tougher matchup because that means he can get the tackle numbers, still get plenty of possessions, can get some of the outside ball with some +6s, and obviously hit the scoreboard at times as well. So I think he's one of the unique characters that actually prefers tougher matchups than he does easier matchups just because he is sort of that grunt work player. So, and with no Lachie Neale for the remainder of the next 2 weeks, I think that just gives him more opportunity to get more of the appeal and is going to increase his floor and increase his ceiling. So I think he's a very, very decent option. And yeah, he's fairly unique in the top sort of 1,000. So obviously he's super expensive, so you are paying a fair bit. But again, you're paying for what you're going to get. Is a very capable fantasy player that can regularly put up 110s and even put up bigger ceiling scores for you. So I think he's over that patch in the middle where he was just going so poorly and should be good to finish off the year. So that's why he's at number 2. Matt Rao, again, same sort of fashion. You're just paying up for the best players at this time of year if you have the luxury. So Matt Rao sort of falls into that same category. 11 tons on the trot now, getting it done. Doesn't look like slowing down, even though he has some tougher matchups coming. Should just get the job done. So I still think he's a very viable option. Again, sort of falls into that same sort of category that He doesn't care if it's a tough matchup. He's that grunt work player, so he gets the tackles, gets plenty of disposals because he is that ball getter, and he's starting to get more of the outside ball, which is pleasing to see. 4 marks, three and four, is pleasing to see. Needs to not get as many free kicks away though, which is hopefully going away, but we'll wait and see. So Matt Rowe's there. Number 4, I've got Errol Goulden. If you're just looking for a straight midfielder, again, he's got a decent run home. Sydney do with the Cats, and then the Eagles should get the job done for you there. Does have a pretty high floor of a 90 plus, and does obviously have a pretty big ceiling that we have seen in the past. Probably hasn't shown that hugely this season because of that injury. But yeah, would love to see his time tick up as well. We're used to seeing him having like 95+% in seasons gone past, but maybe that's probably one of the bigger factors that he hasn't been such a big scorer this season. His time on ground has dropped away, whether that's a coaching direction. Got to remember they changed over their coach throughout the start of the season. So that's maybe the only flag I have with picking him up. You're not expecting him to suddenly become prime Errol Goulden. But I think, again, he's a pretty solid 90+ guy that does have a ceiling and does have a decent run home and can put up some very good scores when the matchup is there. So I think he can be a bit more of a unique option. He is just over 10% owned this season. So again, quite unique there. And to finish off my top 5, I have thrown in a couple different options there that are more unique of the bunch. You've got the likes of a Hugh McCluggage, Ed Richards, and Treloar. All have pretty decent matchups. Again, Ed Richards to start there, and Liberatore. I'll throw them both in at the same time. West Coast Eagles, very easy matchup. We saw Ed Richards get 110 last week. Again, in an okay matchup. He's just very hit and miss, but he could be that player that can have a bit of a pop score, like we saw towards the start of the season with a 130, 120, and he could give you that very unique score. He is sub 5%, so he'd be very lowly owned in the top 1,000 and could be that pop player that can get you, if not get your ranking rising, it could be that player that could win you your final. So I don't absolutely hate it, and is super cheap, 923k. Liberatore in the same sort of fashion, very cheap, does have a pretty safe floor on him because he is that grunt work player and does tackle a fair bit. So I don't absolutely mind him there. The only flag I probably have a little bit more with Libba is, again, if they were to make finals, do they start to rest him a little bit because he is of that older nature, and with his injury histories, with the concussions and whatnot, they probably want to play him a bit safer. So I probably lean towards Ed Richards more than I do Libba at this stage. So that's just where I sit with that one. And Hugh McCluggage was the last one I mentioned of the unique bunch. Again, same sort of fashion with Josh Dunkley. No Lockie Neal means he has more time in the midfield, more points available to him. Means he could go on a bit of a run. I probably should have thrown in the likes of Will Ashcroft as well. Obviously, he went pretty berserk last week. If I can get his name right. He went 118. Obviously, since Lockie Neal went down, he does have that bit of ceiling. Again, more ball access to him. So it could be a very, very unique option. But again, he's not super cheap. Run's not really there. And I'd probably trust the floor of Hugh McCluggage more than I would of a Will Ashcroft, just in my opinion. So that's just where I sit with that one. A few more options I should quickly mention here. Just scrolling down. Finn Callahan definitely could be a good option. Decent run next two. Just slightly concerned he may cop a bit of attention in the St Kilda game. Probably not the Suns game, but definitely could be in the St Kilda game. And I'm not a huge hot on this player because he does require 30+ touches to get these decent sort of 110 sort of scores. 31 touches, 8 tackles, and one goal. 124 is pretty solid. I would like to see that more often. But yeah, you just regularly see high disposals, but really not hitting the big scores enough. So not for me at this stage. But again, could be super unique. Sub 10%. I probably wouldn't touch any of these players. Heaney, still a viable player. Anderson, now that he's over his tag option, could be okay, but tougher run. Like I said, for Rao, I definitely lean towards Rao over Anderson at this stage. Steele did return to some form last week with 17 touches and eight tackles and 8 marks, which is pretty unreal. He had more tackles and marks than he did disposals, which is something I don't think we've seen in a long time. To put up 101, decent matchup this weekend, but I think the injury concern is enough to keep us away at this stage. Not touching Tom Green, not jumping on Zach Merritt with him being obviously injured. So those 247 pick coaches trading him in, you must be trying to throw your season away. I'm not sure what you're doing there. And that's probably about it for midfielders. So let's quickly finish off the video with my top 5 for defenders. Again, this is probably where a lot more people are looking. So, number 1, I've got the Wang. If you don't have him, best matchup for midfielders and designated kick-up players is Essendon, so you just have to go there. I don't think I need to elaborate on that too much more. You should have him at this stage. He is averaging 113 for the season now. Just unreal. Definitely one of the better players of the season. Number 2, I had Jack Sinclair, fresh off his 146 against Richmond. Again, very similar matchup against Essendon. Shouldn't cop any attention, should get plenty of marks, should get plenty of disposals, should have another field day, so definitely want to jump on there. Number 3, I had Harry Sheasel against Richmond. If you don't have him, he's been super solid. Only had one sort of blip in the best part of the season. Everything's been sort of 90 plus besides that 81 and 65. He's been super consistent, even though his role has been unattractive, to say the least. But the last 2 weeks, it has been looking a lot better. He's had 70 plus percent CVAs for the last 2 weeks. So showing that he's been used in the midfield a lot more. Access to the ball, access to go down back a little bit more and gets those plus 6s. So I really like him this week. Should hopefully put up a 120 plus. So really good trade in. Connor Rosie, if he jumped off a few weeks ago, looked okay in the matchup against Fremantle, which again is a bit of a tougher one. With 19 touches, 7 marks, 6 tackles, just got the job done, plus two goals there, trying to win the game for them. So it shows that he's not afraid to use his hands. So I think he'll be okay in the last 2. Like I said, good matchups. And number 5, I have just gone with the safe option of Lachie Whitfield. Obviously off that 91 in a tough matchup, should be okay in the final 2 against the Suns and St Kilda. So that is my top 5. Zorko, tough matchups to finish off the year. I just probably wouldn't go there, especially with that concern of the foot injury, but he looked okay last week. But in a tougher matchup, surprisingly didn't cop any attention realistically. So that was a bit interesting. Cecily could be a very decent option as a D7 option. I wouldn't trust him on field because, again, he could be locked down quite quickly, being the main ball mover off halfback. Again, wouldn't really go there. Bailey Dale, yeah, I wouldn't do it, but I'm a Bailey Dale hater, if you know me, so I'm just not going there, and I don't recommend anyone else to do it. Wouldn't be trading in Max Holmes this week with a potential tag coming his way if you are not an owner already, so that's just where I sit with that one. Kobe McKercher, though, if you don't have him, is a viable trade, and he's been super consistent, constantly hitting hundreds and, being at that sort of top 6 defender quite comfortably. So that's about it, I think. So that is my trade in options this week. Hopefully I have touched on all the players that you think that you should be looking at. But quickly look at what I'm doing. It has not changed at all at this stage. I'll keep playing around with it if I can find anything better, but I'm pretty set that this is what I want to go with. Yes, I could probably search for a bit more of a ceiling player than Josh Dunkley this week in the tougher matchup. But again, I think he'll be okay in the West over there. What I'm doing with looping this week, I'm hopefully going to be looking at likes of Isaac Rankin against the Collingwood, see how he goes there. Hopefully he plays in the midfield and I can just take his score. And same with Zach Butters, and then I'll be looping between them. So that will be by using the likes of Matthew Kennedy. He does play the last game, and I can move Ted Closey into my forward line to take one or the other. And I do also have Jeremy Cameron on the bench at the moment. So I will hopefully be able to, if the likes of Rankin doesn't score well, then I can just back in Jeremy Crammond to hopefully put up a better score than what Rankin does, and vice versa. So that's just what I'm looking at this stage. I will touch on captains in tomorrow's video, or maybe I'll put it out Friday, because the first game isn't on Thursday this week. So I'll wait and see how that goes. But yeah, that's today's video. That is today's video, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed. Yeah, please leave any questions you have down below, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. But hopefully you have a great weekend, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers, guys.